Ramana means seeker, one who performs acts of austerity, ascetic. The term refers to several Indian religious movements parallel to but separate from the historical Vedic religion. The Sramana tradition includes Jainism of 9th century BCE, Buddhism of 6th century BCE, and others such as Ajivika and Karvaka. The Sramana movements arose in the same circles of mendicants in ancient India that led to the development of yogic practices, as well as the popular concepts in all major Indian religions such as samsara and moksha. The Sramanic traditions have a diverse range of beliefs, ranging from accepting or denying the concept of soul, fatalism to free will, idealization of extreme asceticism to that of family life, wearing dress to complete nudity in daily social life, strict ahimsa and vegetarianism to permissibility of violence and meat-eating. Etymology and origin. One of the earliest recorded use of the word Sramana, in the sense of a mendicant, is in verse 4.3.22 of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, composed by about the 8th century BCE. The concept of renunciation and monk-like lifestyle is found in Vedic literature, with terms such as yatis, rishisa, and sramanas. Early Vedic literature from about 1000 BCE mentions muni, with characteristics that mirror those of sramanas. Rig Veda, for example, in Book 10 Chapter 136, mentions mendicants as those with kesan and mala clothes engaged in the affairs of Minanat. Rig Veda also uses the term Vartarasana. He with the long loose log supports Agni, and moisture, heaven, and earth. He is all sky to look upon. He with long hair is called this light. The Munis, girdled with the wind, wear garments of soil hue. They, following the wind's swift course, go where the gods have gone before. Rig Veda. Hymn 10.136, 1-2. Buddhist commentaries associate the words etymology with the quieting of evil, as in the following phrase from the 3rd century BCE. Dhammapada. Verse 265. Samatata papanan samanoti pavukati. The word Sramana is postulated to be derived from the verbal root sram, meaning to exert effort, labor or to perform austerity. The history of wandering monks in ancient India is partly untraceable. The term Parivrajaka was perhaps applicable to all the peripatetic monks of India, such as those found in Buddhism, Jainism and Hinduism. The Sramana refers to a variety of renunciate ascetic traditions from the middle of the 1st millennium BCE. The Sramanas were individual, experiential and free-form traditions. The term Ramanas is used some Indian texts to contrast them with Brahmins in terms of their religious models. Part of the Ramana tradition retained their distinct identity from Hinduism by rejecting the epistemic authority of the Vedas, while a part of the Ramana tradition became part of Hinduism as one stage in the ashrama dharma, that is, as renunciate sannyasins. History. Several Sramana movements are known to have existed in India before the 6th century BCE, and these influenced both the Astika and Nastika traditions of Indian philosophy. Martin Wiltshire states that the Sramana tradition evolved in India over 2 phases, namely Paksika Buddha and Savaka phases, the former being the tradition of individual ascetic and latter of disciples, and that Buddhism and Jainism ultimately emerged from these as sectarian manifestations. These traditions drew upon already established Brahmanical concepts, states Wiltshire, to formulate their own doctrines. Reginald Ray concurs that Sramana movements already existed and were established traditions in pre-6th century BCE India, but disagrees with Wiltshire that they were non-sectarian before the arrival of Buddha. According to the Jainagamas and the Buddhist Pali canon, there were other Sramana leaders at the time of Buddha. The Mahaparinibbana Sutta, a Sramana named Subhadra, mentions those ascetics, Samana and Brahmins who have orders and followings, who are teachers, well known and famous as founders of schools. and popularly regarded as saints, like Purana Kassapa, Makali Gosala, Ohitakesa Kambali, Pakadakakayana, Sanjaya Balataputta and Nigananataputta. Dhyānikaya. 16 pre-Buddhist Sramana schools in Buddhist texts. The Buddhist text Samaṇa identifies 6 pre-Buddhist Sramana schools, identifying them by their leader. These 6 schools are represented in the text to have diverse philosophies, which states Padmanabhajana may be a biased picture and does not give a true picture of the Sramanic schools rivaling with Buddhism. Sramana movement of Purana Kassapa believed in antinomian ethics. This ancient school asserted that there are no moral laws, nothing is moral or immoral, there is neither virtue nor sin. Sramana movement of Makali Gosala believed in fatalism and determinism, that everything is the consequence of nature and its laws. The school denied that there is free will, but believed that soul exists. Everything has its own individual nature, based on how one is constituted from elements. Karma and consequences are not due to free will, cannot be altered, everything is predetermined, because of and including one's composition. Sramana movement of Ohitakesa Kambali believed in materialism, denied that there is an afterlife, ever samsara, any karma, or any fruit of good or evil deeds. Everything including humans are composed of elemental matter, and when one dies one returns back to those elements. Sramana movement of Pakadakakayana believed in atomism, denied that there is a creator. Noah believed that everything is made of 7 basic building blocks that are eternal, neither created nor caused to be created. The 7 blocks included earth, water, fire, air, happiness, pain and soul. All actions, including death, is mere rearrangement and interpenetration of one set of substances into another set of substances. Sramana movement of Nigananataputta believed in fourfold restraint, avoid all evil. Sramana movement of Sanjaya Balataputta believed in absolute agnosticism, refused to have any opinion either way about existence of or non-existence of afterlife, karma, good, evil, free will, creator, soul, or other topics. The pre-Buddhist Indian Sramanic movements were organized Sangagani, according to the Buddhist text Samaṇa. The 6 leaders above are described as Asangi, Ganakariyo, Cira Pabahito, Yasasi and Netto. Jainism. Jain literature 2 mentions Purana Kassapa, Makali Gosala and Sanjaya Balataputta. During the life of Buddha, Mahavira and the Buddha were leaders of their Sramana orders. Nigananataputta refers to Mahavira. The Sramana system is believed by a majority Jaina scholars to have been of independent origin and not a protest movement of any kind, were led by Jaina thinkers, and were pre-Buddhist and pre-Vedic. Some scholars state the Sramanas of Jain tradition were widespread in the Indus Valley, with the relics of Indus Valley civilization representing Jain culture, like the standing nude male figures in Kaosaga, idols in lotus position, images with serpent heads, and the bull symbol of Rishabha. Other scholars suggest the Sramana cultures, over a millennium after Indus Valley civilization, flourished in the Gangetic Valley, rather than the Indus Valley. In later periods, the Jains migrated towards the west and south of India and established themselves as prosperous communities in the Chalukya and Rashtrakuta courts. Their beliefs adopted many gods and goddesses of the regional Hindu traditions, but they never became theistic. They treated the Hindu gods and goddesses such as the Vishnu avatar Rama as heroes, but denied their divinity. The Jains of medieval era developed their own epics, quite similar to the Hindu epics, where the Ahimsa doctrine was upheld and made the basis of sending Krishna to purgatory after the Mahabharata war. They developed their own Puranas, with hagiography about Jain Tirthankaras, similar to those found in Hindu Puranic texts. The Jain texts of the 8th century CE state that the system of Varnas was invented by the first of 24 Tirthankaras. However, they retained the supremacy of Jain Kshatriyas class over the Jain Brahmins. Jain scholars such as Hemachandra marked another historical rise of Jainism, when he persuaded the Shaivite king of Gujarat, Kumarapala, to convert to Jainism. Elsewhere, and over the medieval period of its history, Jain monasteries became major libraries of manuscripts not only of Jaina literature, but also of Buddhist and Hindu literature, contributing to closer relationship and the sharing of ideas between the various Indian philosophies. Buddhism. It was as a Sramana that the Buddha left his father's palace and practiced austerities. Gautama Buddha, after fasting nearly to death by starvation, regarded extreme austerities and self-mortification as useless or unnecessary in attaining enlightenment, recommending instead a middle way between the extremes of hedonism and self-mortification. Devadatta, a cousin of Gautama, caused a split in the Buddhist Sangha by demanding more rigorous practices. The Buddhist Shramanic movement chose moderate ascetic lifestyle. This was in contrast to Jainas, who continued the tradition of stronger austerity, such as fasting and giving away all property including clothes and thus going naked, emphasizing that complete dedication to spirituality includes turning away from material possessions and any cause for evil karma. The moderate ascetic precepts, states Collins, likely appeal to more people, and widen the base of people wanting to become Buddhists. The Buddhist Shramanic movement also developed a code for interaction of world-pursuing laypeople, and world-denying Buddhist monastic communities, which encouraged continued relationship between the two. Two rules of this monastic code, for example, states Collins, were that a person could not join a monk community without parents' permission, and that at least one son remained with each family to care for that family. The Buddhist teachings also combined the continuing interaction, such as giving alms to monks, in terms of merit gained for good rebirth and good karma by the lay people. This code played a historic role in its growth, and provided a means for reliable alms and social support for Buddhist Shramanic movement. Randall Collins states that Buddhism was more a reform movement within the educated religious classes, composed mostly of Brahmins, rather than a rival movement from outside these classes. In early Buddhist Shramanic movement, the largest number of monks were derived from Brahmin origin, and virtually all the monks were recruited from the two upper classes of society, Brahmins and Kshatriyas. The Sramana idea of wandering began to change early in Buddhism. The renunciates started living in viharas, at first during Vasa, the rainy season, but eventually permanently. In medieval Jainism, the tradition of wandering also waned, but it was revived in the 19th century. Similar changes have regularly occurred in Buddhism. Ajivika was founded in the 5th century BCE by Makali Gosala, as a Sramana movement, and a major rival of early Buddhism and Jainism. Ajivikas were organized renunciates who formed discrete communities. The Ajivikas reached the height of their prominence in the late 1st millennium BCE, then declined, yet continued to exist in South India until the 14th century CE, as evidenced by inscriptions found in southern India. Ancient texts of Buddhism and Jainism mention a city in the 1st millennium BCE named Savathi as the hub of the Ajivikas. It was located in what is now the North Indian state of Uttar Pradesh. In later part of the Common Era, inscriptions suggest that the Ajivikas had a significant presence in the South Indian state of Karnataka and the Kolar district of Tamil Nadu. Original scriptures of the Ajivika school of philosophy once existed, but these are unavailable and probably lost. Their theories are extracted from mentions of Ajivikas in the secondary sources of ancient Indian literature. Scholars question whether Ajivika philosophy has been fairly and completely summarized in these secondary sources, written by ancient Buddhist and Jaina scholars, who represented competing and adversarial philosophies to Ajivikas. conflict between Ramana movements. According to the 2nd century CE text Ashoka-Vardhana, the Mauryan emperor Bindusara was a patron of the Ajivikas, and it reached its peak of popularity during this time. Ashoka-Vardhana also mentions that Bindusara's son Ashoka converted to Buddhism, became enraged at a picture that depicted Buddha in negative light, and issued an order to kill all the Ajivikas in Pundravardhana. Around 18,000 followers of the Ajivika sect were executed as a result of this order. Jaina texts mention separation and conflict between Mahavira and Gosala, accusation of contemptuous comments, and an occasion where the Jaina and Ajivika monastic orders came to blows. However, given the texts alleging conflict and portraying Ajivikas and Gosala in negative light were written centuries after the incident by their Ramana opponents, and given the versions in Buddhist and Jaina texts are different, the reliability of these stories, states Basham, is questionable.